In November 1923, a woman in Berlin took a wheelbarrow full of banknotes to buy a loaf of bread. By the time she reached the bakery, someone had stolen the wheelbarrow. They left the money on the pavement. It was not worth carrying. In November 1918, Germany lost the First World War. The Kaiser abdicated. The monarchy ended. Within weeks, free elections were held. A new constitution guaranteed freedoms that most European countries did not yet have. The Weimar Republic was, by any reasonable measure, a functioning democracy, and it worked. For a while. But the Versailles Treaty had handed Germany a bill. The Allies had decided that Germany was solely responsible for the war and must pay for all of it. The figure agreed in 1921 was 132 billion gold marks. To put that in context, it was roughly equivalent to the entire German economic output for 4 years. Germany had no realistic path to paying it. The Allies knew this. They demanded it anyway. By 1921, Germany was already struggling to make payments. The government faced 3 options: raise taxes and crush a recovery that had barely started, cut spending and abandon the veterans and widows the war had left behind, or print money. Printing had a logic. If the mark fell in value, German exports became cheaper. More exports meant more foreign currency. More foreign currency meant reparation payments. It was not a stupid plan. In 1921, $1 bought 75 German marks. By July 1922, it bought 400. By January 1923, it bought 7,000. By July 1923, it bought 160,000. By September, 98 million. By November 1923, the month of the wheelbarrow, $1 bought 4,200 billion marks. While German families queued for bread, foreign visitors arrived with dollars, pounds, and francs. For an American tourist in November 1923, a full week in a Berlin luxury hotel cost the equivalent of $1. A Dutch businessman could buy a 6-room Berlin townhouse for the price of 2 pounds of butter back home. British investors purchased factories, printing presses, and entire commercial buildings for sums that would not have bought a bicycle in London. The Germans watching this understood what was happening. Their savings had been destroyed by a government decision, and now foreigners were buying their country at prices that were only possible because of that destruction. This was not abstract economics. It was visible daily on every street corner. And it had a face. The politicians who came later knew exactly how to use it. The hyperinflation did not destroy everyone equally. It chose its victims with a particular cruelty. Workers, whose wages were paid daily and spent immediately, survived. Debtors, whose loans were now worth essentially nothing, suddenly found themselves debt-free. But the middle class, the teachers, the civil servants, the small business owners, the retirees who had spent decades saving, were annihilated. A retired school teacher who had saved diligently for 30 years found that her savings account, which had once been enough to live on for a decade, would now not buy a single loaf of bread. She had done everything society told her to do. She had been responsible, and responsibility had destroyed her. By late 1923, the government introduced a new currency, and the hyperinflation ended almost overnight. The economy recovered, but something had already broken that prosperity could not fix. But the damage was not economic. It was psychological. An entire generation of Germans had learned that institutions could not be trusted, that savings were worthless, that the government would sacrifice the responsible middle class to survive, that playing by the rules was for people who could afford to lose. This was not a lesson that could be unlearned. The German recovery of the mid-1920s was real, but it was built on borrowed money. American banks had flooded Germany with loans under the Dawes Plan. German companies rebuilt. German workers found jobs. German streets filled with the culture of the Roaring Twenties. But the foundation was American capital. And in October 1929, the American stock market collapsed. Within 2 years of the Wall Street crash, German unemployment reached 6 million, nearly 30% of the workforce. Factories closed. Banks failed. The soup kitchens of 1923 reopened. And the Germans who now stood in those queues were not only hungry, they were the same people, or the children of the people, who had already lost everything once to a government that printed money. They had rebuilt. They had trusted again, and again. The institutions had failed them. Between 1928 and 1932, the Nazi Party's share of the German vote went from 2.6% to 37.4%. Not because Germans were uniquely evil, because they were uniquely desperate, failed by their institutions twice in 2 separate decades, with no reason left to trust a third time. A party that promised to end the humiliation, restore order, and punish those responsible found its audience in people who had run out of reasons to trust anything else. In January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by a president who believed he could be controlled. Within months, the Weimar Republic, the most progressive democracy in Europe, had ceased to exist. What collapsed was not the economy. What collapsed was the belief that the economy could be managed fairly. Once that belief was gone, there was nothing left for democracy to stand on. The Weimar Republic lasted 14 years. It was, by almost any measure, a functioning democracy. It collapsed not because democracy failed, but because the economic system that democracy depended on failed first, and failed twice. The question is not whether that sequence could happen again. The question is what you would believe in after the second time.